In this video, I'd like to talk about depression. I'd like to talk about depression and grief. Can grief lead to depression? My experiences of depression within grief. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you have been here before, thank you so much for dropping by again. If you're here for the first time, then welcome. Pull up a chair, let's have a chat. So depression. So depression is a mental health condition, as we know. Grief, on the other hand, is a natural response to the loss of someone or something. And grief symptoms can come about, if someone loses a job or if they have gone through a divorce. It could be a matter, it can be a number of things. It could be the end of something which can lead to symptoms of grief. Okay. Now, as we know, well, a lot of us do know that if we look at the 5 stages of grief by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, so the Kubler-Ross model, 5 stages of grief, the 4th stage of that is actually, in fact, depression. And as because I've done previous videos about the 5 stages of grief, and I've talked about, it's not linear and there's no right or wrong way. It's not that, you go, oh, I've gone through this stage, tick, now I'm on the 2nd stage, and then, a few months later, tick. It's not like that at all. Everyone has their own unique journey that they are going through when it comes to grief. No one experience is the same as another experience. So you are on your own unique journey. But depression. Now, if I talk about myself, again, I'm within my story, so I can talk about myself, my experiences of depression. I talked about after losing my son, very sadly, 4 years ago. The only way I could actually talk about it was, or express how it felt for me, was falling down a deep, dark black hole, which I made a previous video of that. And that's how it felt. It felt like I had fallen into this hole where I couldn't make sense of anything. It was frightening. I'd never been there before. It was truly, truly frightening. Although I've experienced loss before. I've lost my mother, I've lost my father, and I didn't feel that I was in quite a deep, dark place as I was after losing my son. If I talk about the severity of those symptoms, because if we talk about some of the symptoms first, some of the symptoms of depression are, isolating yourself, dissociation, so you almost cut yourself off from the world around you. You can't really relate to it. Nothing is really that recognizable. The world doesn't look the same as it looked before your loss, and it absolutely didn't for me. I couldn't recognize myself. So depersonalization, I didn't know who I was. Everything seemed alien. I couldn't understand why the world was still turning, why the world was still spinning, after the world felt as if it had come to a stop, for me, a standstill. And it's very difficult to explain to someone how it actually felt. Now, the thing is that when we talk about those 5, stages of grief, and depression is one of them, as I said, there's no fixed amount of time that, it lasts for 3 weeks, or it lasts for 3 months, or it lasts for 3 years. There's no rule at all. Okay? For me, I would say, when I talk about being in that deep, dark black hole, it felt as if I was there for about 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months. Being in a place where I just couldn't function. There was no way I could work. There was no way I could I felt safe enough to go out and do my, just get my chores done, by myself. I felt frightened. I felt vulnerable, I think is the right word. Physically and mentally felt vulnerable. And the thing is, the point here is that it lasted for about 6 to 8 months, where after that I started feeling a little bit, I'm not sure if better is the right word, but I came to that fork in the road, and I made a video about that, where it was quite a distinctive sort of fork in the road. I had one decision. One option was, that's it, I'm finished, forget it. I can't go on. I'll just lay here and wait to die, because I don't know how to carry on from this. It's too much for me. And the other option was to honor my son, to honor his life, the fact that he was here for 22 years and he was my son, and was very proud of him. And I felt that I felt that I needed to do something in his honor. And that's really why I'm here, doing what I'm doing. I started up a charity. I started volunteering for a charity where I counsel women who have also experienced child loss. So those of you who've seen my previous videos will know that. So I won't go into that too much, but that's some of the things that I do. This is something that I've just recently started up. I'm, recording these videos, not knowing at the moment, at this time of recording, whether anyone's actually going to watch any of my videos that I'm creating, but with the hope that I can build a community where we can help one another. And that is something that which is the next step, really, if you like, of trying to do something in honor of my son. So when it came to my depression, it almost came to a point where my mind was then having that conversation with my heart and saying, well, this is really what we need to do to move forward. But I at the same time didn't really understand, well, where am I going to get that motivation from? Where am I going to get that energy from? Because I feel so wounded. I feel so lost. I'm in such pain. How am I going to find the motivation to do that? How am I going to, how am I going to put things into place to make this happen? But slowly, but surely, things did start coming into place for me. So the stage of depression for me, as I say, lasted 6 to 8 weeks, but that's not always the case. That's not always the case. I have clients where it's been 2-3 years since they've lost their child, or had that loss, that significant loss in their life. And the depression stage is where they're still at, along with some of the other stages as well. You can still have the stage of denial and bargaining, acceptance. You go backwards and forwards with acceptance. You still, 4 years later, I still can sometimes feel that, what if he was just to come and walk through the door and just, as he used to, throw his bag down and his coat down and say, what's for dinner? So, yeah, it still affects us. It still affects us. It's still real. It's still there, isn't it? Just because you put a smile on your face and you put a camera on and you think, okay, I'm going to record this, just goes to show that, what you're holding is there, just under the surface. Another symptom of depression is, to put a mask on your face. So wear a mask, and it covers up what you're actually holding underneath that mask. So there's lots of symptoms of depression, and some of us do get to a point where we can, function adequately. When I say the word adequately for us, what we feel we want to be doing or we need to be doing. And that differs from one person to another. It's what's your definition of adequate, really, is really what we're talking about, which is different for everyone. So the symptoms of depression can be either mild, moderate, or severe, depending on how many symptoms you're carrying. And a lot of us can actually experience mild depression quite a lot. There's not being able to sleep well, or being off your food, perhaps. You're losing your appetite, loss of libido, perhaps. There can be so many things that you might think, oh, these are symptoms of depression. But we still carry on. We carry on with them, don't we? So I shared in another video about a client who has a diagnosis of PTSD as a result of her son sadly passing away. He was actually in another state. She was in America. He was in another state studying and working. He wanted to sort of prove himself to his parents that he could do it. He didn't want any help from them. He didn't want any financial help from them, although my client, I think, is very financially quite comfortable. He wouldn't accept any financial help from them. He just wanted to prove that he could do it on his own. I think he was in his mid to late 20s, I believe. And he very sadly lost his life. He became very ill. He had lost his job. He wasn't turning up at university. He was feeling unwell. He promised his parents that he would go along to the doctor, that he had medical insurance in place. And of course he didn't. He didn't have any insurance in place as a result of him being financially struggling. And as a result of that, my client has a diagnosis of PTSD. She is on medication for that, and also for depression. She is pretty stagnant with depression, and that is really causing her to isolate herself. She is finding it very difficult to socialize in any way. If any friends get in touch, she's finding it very difficult to accept their invitation or have them come and see her. So she's really struggling with that. And I remember she called me just a few days ago, actually, and she said, Ghazala, when am I going to stop feeling so sad? And, again, my heart went out to her, but the thing is that there's no journal for us to, just look up. We can't, open it up to the page where, how long does sadness go on for, or when am I going to stop feeling sad? There isn't any answer to that question. The answer is, how do you see your level of sadness? Where is your level of sadness? Where is your level of happiness or contentment? And realizing that with depression and with levels of sadness, you can still actually experience, moments of joy and moments of happiness. But it's allowing those to come in and allowing those emotions to be there. And I think a lot of guilt plays into that as well, because sometimes we can feel very guilty for feeling happiness or feeling any sort of feeling of fulfillment. Because, again, for me, it's fulfillment isn't really at the level it was before I lost my son. It's at a different level now. Level of happiness is at a different level. It's not where it was. So it's being realistic about those. Depression is a mental health condition for which we may be, if it fits, if your symptoms fit within a diagnostic criteria, let's say, you may be put on medication for that, and that may help, and it does help some. Otherwise, sometimes people can use other kind of methods, sort of self-help strategies, if you like, to deal with mild to moderate depression. For example, getting plenty of fresh air, eating healthily, thinking about your sleeping patterns, making it easier for yourself to make sure that you get enough sleep, Make sure that when you do eat, you eat nutritious meals. That's important. You're not just mindlessly eating. That probably isn't going to have a positive effect on your levels of depression if you're doing that. Again, junk food, fast food probably isn't a good place to go when you're feeling down and depressed, and that's probably the kind of thing that your body will probably crave. So it's very hard to put things into place, when you're feeling low. I tend to share with my clients to have a journal, have a list of things that you can open up and read when you are actually feeling low. Things that are positive about yourself, your attributes, your qualities, things that you probably won't say to yourself when you're feeling low. So if you open up that journal and read them out to yourself, you can just remind yourself of the attributes and qualities and things that you do have about yourself and what you give to your family, your friends, colleagues, and just remind yourself of those. Gratitude is something that I practice. I do that. Things that you're grateful for, maybe write those down as well, because sometimes when you're in that low place, having those low moments, it's nice to just remind yourself what you do have and what you do have to be grateful for. And I think that can sometimes help too. Okay, so withdrawing and isolation is something that in the long run isn't going to help, because you're just you're in it on your own. And one of the reasons for me to turn to to this YouTube channel, and it's, like I say, very early days at the moment. I'm just recording content and putting it out there on YouTube. I think I'm trying to build up a little bit of a library at the moment, which no one may see. I don't know how that much about it. Whether it's going to be whether the algorithm is going to pick my videos up and get them out to people that are looking at content similar to mine, or whether that's not going to ever happen. I don't know. But who knows? Even if that doesn't happen, this might be a nice little library of content for my daughters to have a look at some other time in their life. I don't think they would benefit from looking at it right now, but maybe later on they might see the value of it. I think at the moment my family members do know that I'm doing something, doing some sort of recording, but they're not really asking me too many questions, and I'm not answering, and I'm not really informing them and letting them know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not really doing that. We'll just have to see where it goes, and then I'll make a decision on that. Okay, so thank you so much for coming by again. And again, if this video was of any help to you, please comment. If you're struggling with any of the symptoms that I've shared, please do comment about those. If you feel that someone who's experiencing depression after loss, or depression in itself, please do share this video as well, and comment, like, subscribe. That will be absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And I hope to see you again in my next video. Please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.